The dusty stagecoach rolled to a stop outside the Del Rio, Texas hotel, just as Helena Evans felt the cold metal of her wedding ring being yanked from her finger. And she knew in that moment her entire world had shattered beyond repair. "Get out," Marcus Thornton said, his voice as cold as the January wind that swept across the Rio Grande. The man who had promised to love and cherish her only 3 months prior now looked at her with such contempt that Helena felt her stomach twist. "I cannot stand the sight of you anymore." Helena stared at her husband, her green eyes wide with disbelief. "Marcus, please, what have I done? I do not understand. You failed to give me what I need," he said flatly, adjusting his expensive coat. The other passengers in the stagecoach shifted uncomfortably, pretending not to hear the cruel dismissal happening before them. "You are barren, worthless to me. My family needs an heir and you cannot provide that. 3 months of marriage and nothing to show for it." Heat flooded Helena's cheeks as humiliation washed over her. The year was 1878, and she knew full well what such an accusation meant for a woman's reputation, even if it was absurd to expect pregnancy so soon. But Marcus came from money from Boston society, and he was used to getting exactly what he wanted when he wanted it. "You cannot just abandon me here," Helena whispered, her voice breaking. "We are in the middle of Texas. I have no family, no money. You brought me out here." Marcus reached into his vest pocket and tossed a few coins at her feet. They clattered against the wooden floor of the stagecoach, and Helena felt tears sting her eyes. "That should get you a room for a night or two. After that, you are on your own. I am returning to Boston to find a proper wife." Before Helena could respond, Marcus grabbed her small carpet bag and threw it out the stagecoach door into the dirt street. "Driver, help the lady out. She will be staying in Del Rio." The driver, an older man with a weathered face, looked genuinely sorry as he opened the door and extended his hand to Helena. She took it with trembling fingers, her whole body shaking as she stepped down into the street. The moment her feet touched the ground, the stagecoach door slammed shut, and Marcus called out for the driver to continue. Helena stood there in the middle of the street, watching the stagecoach disappear in a cloud of dust, taking with it every plan she had made for her future. At 22 years old, she found herself alone in a rough border town with nothing but the clothes on her back, a small bag of belongings, and a handful of coins that would not last more than a week. The winter sun beat down with surprising intensity despite the cool air, and Helena bent to gather the coins from the dirt where they had fallen from the stagecoach. Her hands were still shaking as she picked up her carpetbag and looked around Del Rio for the first time. The town was smaller than she had imagined, a collection of wooden buildings lining a main street that led down toward the river. She could see a general store, a saloon, what appeared to be a boarding house, and various other establishments that serviced the ranchers, cowboys, and drifters who passed through this part of Texas. It was nothing like Boston, nothing like the comfortable life she had known before her parents died and left her without protection or prospects. Marcus had seemed like an answer to prayer when he had courted her 6 months ago. He had been charming, attentive, promising her security, and a fresh start in the West where he claimed he had business interests. She had been foolish enough to believe him, to think that someone actually wanted her after her parents' death had left her dependent on distant relatives who saw her as a burden. Now she understood the truth. Marcus had wanted a broodmare, not a wife. And when she had not immediately conceived, he had discarded her like trash. Helena forced herself to move, walking toward the boarding house with as much dignity as she could muster. Several people on the street stared at her, noting her fine dress, now dusty from travel, and her obvious distress. A woman alone was always cause for speculation, especially one who had clearly just been cast out of a stagecoach like unwanted cargo. The boarding house was run by a stern-looking woman named Mrs. Patterson who looked Helena up and down with shrewd eyes. "You got money?" she asked bluntly. Helena showed her the coins. "Enough for a few nights, I hope." Mrs. Patterson counted the money with practiced fingers. 3 nights, meals included. After that, you will need to find work or move on. I do not run a charity." "I understand," Helena said quietly. "Thank you." The room was small but clean, with a narrow bed, a washstand, and a single window that looked out over the main street. Helena set down her bag and sank onto the bed, finally allowing herself to cry. Great, heaving sobs shook her body as the reality of her situation crashed down upon her. She was alone, nearly penniless in a town where she knew no one. What was she going to do for the rest of that day? Helena stayed in her room, trying to compose herself and think of a plan. By nightfall, she had cried herself empty and was left with a hollow feeling in her chest where hope used to live. She nibbled at the bread and stew that Mrs. Patterson brought up, though she had little appetite. The next morning, Helena washed her face in the basin, pinned up her dark hair as neatly as she could manage, and went downstairs to ask Mrs. Patterson about work. "Not much call for a woman's skills around here," Mrs. Patterson said, stirring a pot of oatmeal on the stove. "Can you cook? Clean?" "So?" "Yes, all of those things," Helena said. "I can read and write as well. I am educated." Mrs. Patterson snorted. "Education does not mean much out here, girl. But I suppose there might be work at the general store. Old Mr. Hutchins has been complaining about needing help with inventory. Or you could try the saloon, but I would not recommend that for a decent woman." Helena nodded, understanding the implication. "I will try the general store, thank you." The general store was packed with goods from floor to ceiling. Everything from flour and sugar to bolts of fabric and farming equipment. Mr. Hutchins was a portly man in his 60s with kind eyes behind wire-rimmed spectacles. He listened to Helena's request for work with a sympathetic expression. "I wish I could help you, miss," he said regretfully. "But I just hired my nephew last week. He is learning the business from me. I do not have enough work for 2 people." Helena felt her heart sink but forced herself to smile. "I understand. Thank you for your time." She spent the rest of the day going from business to business, asking about work. The answer was always the same: no positions available, or the work was unsuitable for a woman of her background. By the time the sun began to set, Helena's feet ached, her dress was covered in dust, and her spirits had never been lower. On her 3rd morning in Del Rio, with only 1 night's lodging left, Helena was growing desperate. She was sitting on a bench outside the boarding house, trying to decide what to do next, when she heard the sound of horses approaching. Looking up, she saw a group of cowboys riding into town, leading a pack horse loaded with supplies. The man in front caught her attention immediately. He was tall and lean, sitting his horse with the easy confidence of someone born to the saddle. His hair was dark beneath his worn hat, and even from a distance, she could see the strong line of his jaw and the sharp intelligence in his eyes. He looked to be in his late 20s, weathered by sun and wind but handsome in a rugged way that made her heart skip unexpectedly. As the group rode past, the lead cowboy glanced her way. Their eyes met for just a moment, and Helena saw something flicker in his expression, a question perhaps, before he looked away and continued down the street toward the general store. Helena watched them go, then sighed and stood up. She had no time for idle thoughts about handsome cowboys. She needed to find work, and fast. She decided to try one last place, the small restaurant at the end of the main street. It was called the Rio Café, and it looked like it catered to working men who needed hot meals. Perhaps they needed help in the kitchen. The owner, a harried-looking woman named Beatrice, listened to Helena's plea with obvious skepticism. "You ever worked in a restaurant before?" "No, but I am a quick learner," Helena said. "I can cook, clean, serve tables, whatever you need." Beatrice wiped her hands on her apron. "I will give you a trial. 2 weeks, room and board plus a small wage. If you work out, we will talk about making it permanent. If not, you will need to move on." Relief flooded through Helena so intensely that she felt dizzy. Thank you so much. I will not disappoint you." "We will see about that," Beatrice said. "Start tomorrow morning, 5 o'clock sharp. We serve breakfast to the ranch hands before they head out for the day." That evening, Helena paid Mrs. Patterson for one more night and explained that she had found work with room and board. The older woman nodded approvingly. "Good. You have some gumption, I will give you that. Most women in your situation would have fallen apart by now." Helena wanted to say that she had fallen apart, thoroughly and completely, but she was trying desperately to piece herself back together. Instead, she just smiled and thanked Mrs. Patterson for her kindness. The next morning, Helena reported to the Rio Café before dawn. Beatrice put her to work immediately, showing her where everything was kept and explaining the routine. The work was hard, the kitchen hot, and the customers demanding, but Helena threw herself into it with determination. She could not afford to fail. By mid-morning, the breakfast rush had died down, and Helena was wiping down tables when the door opened, and the group of cowboys she had seen the previous day walked in. The tall, dark-haired man was with them, and up close, Helena could see that his eyes were a striking blue-gray like storm clouds over the prairie. "Morning, Beatrice," he called out, his voice deep and warm. "Got room for 5 hungry men?" "Always got room for you, Zachary," Beatrice called back from the kitchen. "Sit yourselves down." The cowboys took a large table near the window, and Helena felt her stomach flutter nervously as she approached them with menus. She had not served tables before, and she did not want to embarrass herself. "Good morning, gentlemen," she said, trying to keep her voice steady. "What can I get for you?" Zachary looked up at her, and she saw recognition dawn in his eyes. "You are the woman I saw outside the boarding house yesterday." "Yes," Helena said, feeling heat creep into her cheeks. "New in town?" one of the other cowboys asked, a friendly-looking man with red hair and freckles. "Yes, quite new," Helena said. "Now, what can I bring you?" They ordered coffee and steak with eggs, and Helena hurried to the kitchen to relay their order to Beatrice. When she returned with a pot of coffee, she could feel Zachary's eyes on her, assessing, curious. "You are a long way from wherever you came from," he said as she poured his coffee. It was not a question. "Yes, I am," Helena said simply, not wanting to discuss her humiliating circumstances with strangers. "Name is Zachary Easton," he said. "I run a ranch about 5 miles north of here. These are some of my hands, Connor, James, Miguel, and Thomas." The men nodded politely, and Helena managed a small smile. "Helena Evans. It is nice to meet you all." She escaped back to the kitchen as quickly as she could, her heart pounding for reasons she did not want to examine too closely. There was something about Zachary Easton that unsettled her, a kindness in his eyes that made her want to trust him, which was dangerous. She had trusted Marcus, and look where that had gotten her. Over the next few days, Helena settled into a routine at the Rio Café. The work was exhausting, starting before dawn and not ending until after dark, but it kept her busy and gave her no time to dwell on her circumstances. Beatrice was a hard taskmaster but fair, and Helena found herself actually enjoying the work despite the long hours. Zachary and his men came in several times that week, always polite. always leaving generous tips that Helena suspected were more for her benefit than because of exceptional service. She tried not to read too much into it, but she found herself looking forward to their visits, to the brief conversations that broke up the monotony of the day. On Saturday morning, the café was particularly busy, and Helena was rushing between tables when she tripped over a chair leg someone had left sticking out. She went sprawling, dropping a tray of dirty dishes that shattered spectacularly across the floor. The café went silent. Helena knelt there among the broken dishes, mortified, fighting back tears of frustration and exhaustion. It had been a long week, and this felt like the final straw. Then a pair of worn boots appeared in her line of vision, and strong hands were helping her up. She looked up to find Zachary Easton steadying her, his blue-gray eyes full of concern. "You all right?" he asked quietly. "I am fine," Helena said, her voice shaking slightly. "Just clumsy." "You are tired," he said, and it was not an accusation, just a statement of fact. "When was the last time you had a day off?" Helena pulled away gently, very aware that everyone in the café was watching them. "I am fine, really. I need to clean this up." Zachary stepped back but did not look convinced. He helped her pick up the larger pieces of broken crockery while other customers turned back to their meals. When Beatrice came out to see what the commotion was about, Zachary spoke before Helena could explain. "My fault," he said smoothly. "I left my chair out and she tripped over it. I will pay for the dishes." It was a lie and everyone knew it, but Beatrice just waved him off. "Accidents happen. Get back to work, Helena. And you, Zachary Easton, sit down and drink your coffee." Later that afternoon, when the lunch rush had ended and Helena was taking a brief break out back, Zachary found her sitting on the back steps of the café, her head in her hands. "You all right?" he asked again, his voice gentle. Helena looked up, startled. "I am fine. Just taking a moment." Zachary leaned against the building, studying her with those perceptive eyes. "You do not have to tell me if you do not want to, but I get the feeling you have had a rough time of it lately." Something about the genuine concern in his voice made Helena's carefully constructed walls crack. "My husband left me here," she said quietly. "Just threw me out of the stagecoach and told me I was worthless to him." She had not meant to say it, had not meant to tell anyone, but once the words started, they kept coming. She told him about Marcus, about the cruel accusation of barrenness, about being abandoned with almost no money in a strange town. Zachary listened without interrupting, his expression growing darker as the story went on. When she finally fell silent, he was quiet for a long moment. "Your husband is a fool," he said finally, "and a coward. Any man who would treat a woman that way is not fit to be called a man." Helena felt tears prick at her eyes. It was the first time anyone had validated her hurt and anger instead of making her feel like she deserved what had happened. "Thank you," she whispered. Zachary pushed away from the wall and crouched down so he was at her eye level. "Listen to me, Helena Evans. Whatever that man told you, it was a lie. You are not worthless. You are not unwanted. Any fool can see that you are strong and capable and brave as hell for picking yourself up and making a life here." The intensity in his voice made her heart race. "You do not even know me." "I know enough," he said. "I have been watching you this past week. You work harder than anyone I have seen. You never complain. You treat everyone with kindness even when they do not return it. That tells me everything I need to know about your character." Helena did not know what to say. No one had ever looked at her the way Zachary was looking at her now, like she was someone worth seeing, worth knowing. "I should get back to work," she said, standing up quickly, suddenly overwhelmed by the emotions swirling inside her. Zachary stood as well. "Helena, if you ever need anything, my ranch is just north of town, the Easton Ranch. Anyone can tell you how to find it. You come out there if you need help, you hear me?" "Why would you help me?" Helena asked, genuinely confused. "You do not know me." "Because it is the right thing to do," Zachary said simply. "And because I would like to know you better if you will let me." Before Helena could respond, he tipped his hat and walked away, leaving her standing there with her heart pounding and her mind racing. Over the next few weeks, Zachary became a regular fixture at the Rio Café. He came in for breakfast almost every morning, sometimes with his men, sometimes alone. He always sat in Helena's section, always left generous tips, and always found a way to make her smile with his dry humor and easy conversation. Helena found herself looking forward to seeing him, found herself thinking about him during the long hours of work. It was different from what she had felt with Marcus. With Marcus, she had been grateful for his attention, relieved to have someone want her. With Zachary, she felt genuinely seen and valued. He asked her questions about her life, her interests, her dreams. He told her about his ranch, about growing up in Texas, about the challenges and rewards of working the land. Slowly, carefully, something was growing between them, and it both thrilled and terrified Helena. One evening in early March, Helena had just finished her shift and was walking back to her room above the café when she heard raised voices from the alley beside the general store. Curiosity and concern made her slow her steps, trying to see what the commotion was about. "I am telling you I saw him," a man was saying. "Marcus Thornton. He is back in Del Rio staying at the fancy hotel." Helena froze, her blood turning to ice. Marcus was back. Why? She hurried to her room, her mind racing. What could Marcus possibly want? He had made it clear that he wanted nothing more to do with her. Unless he had come to finalize the end of their marriage somehow, to make sure she could not make any claims on him or his family's money. The next morning, Helena was a bundle of nerves as she served breakfast. She kept glancing out the window, half expecting to see Marcus walk past. When Zachary came in, he took one look at her face and knew something was wrong. "What happened?" he asked quietly as she poured his coffee. Helena glanced around to make sure no one was listening. "I heard that my husband is back in town." Zachary's expression darkened. "When did he get here?" "Yesterday, apparently. I do not know why he is back. I do not know what he wants." "Do you want me to talk to him?" Zachary asked, his voice hard. "No," Helena said quickly. "I do not want to cause any trouble. I just want him to leave me alone." But fate, it seemed, had other plans. That afternoon, as Helena was clearing tables, the door to the café opened and Marcus walked in, looking as polished and arrogant as ever in his expensive suit. Helena felt her stomach drop. Marcus's eyes swept the room, landing on her with a look of disdain that made her want to disappear. "Helena," he said coolly, "I need to speak with you." Every eye in the café turned toward them. Helena felt heat flood her face, but she lifted her chin. "I am working. If you need to speak with me, it can wait until I am finished." "No, it cannot," Marcus said, his tone making it clear he was used to being obeyed. "This will only take a moment." Beatrice came out of the kitchen, wiping her hands on her apron. "The lady said she is working." "You can wait, or you can leave." Marcus looked at Beatrice with barely concealed contempt. "This is a private matter between me and my wife." "I am not your wife," Helena said, her voice shaking slightly. "You made that clear when you threw me out of a stagecoach and abandoned me here." A murmur ran through the café. Marcus's jaw tightened. "We need to discuss the annulment." "Annulment," Helena repeated. "Yes, I need you to sign papers saying the marriage was never consummated. My lawyers have drawn them up. It will be cleaner than a divorce." The implication of what he was asking, the public humiliation of it, made Helena's face burn. "Get out." "Helena, be reasonable," Marcus said, reaching into his coat for what she assumed were the papers. The lady said, "Get out." a new voice said from the doorway. Helena looked up to see Zachary standing there, his expression thunderous. He must have been riding past and seen Marcus enter the café. Marcus turned to look at Zachary with disdain. "This is none of your concern, cowboy. When a man is harassing a woman in a place I frequent, it becomes my concern," Zachary said, stepping into the café. He moved with deceptive casualness, but Helena could see the tension in his shoulders, the dangerous glint in his eyes. "I am not harassing anyone," Marcus said. "I am speaking to my wife." "She is not your wife," Zachary said. "You gave up that right when you abandoned her. Now you have been asked to leave. I suggest you do so." Marcus looked between Helena and Zachary, and something ugly crossed his face. "I see. You have been keeping yourself busy, Helena. Found yourself a new man already. How typical." Helena flinched as if she had been slapped. Zachary moved so fast she barely saw it, crossing the distance between him and Marcus in 3 long strides. He grabbed Marcus by the front of his expensive coat and lifted him slightly off his feet. "You are going to apologize to the lady," Zachary said, his voice deadly quiet. "And then you are going to leave Del Rio and never come back. Do I make myself clear?" "You cannot threaten me," Marcus sputtered, but there was real fear in his eyes now. "That was not a threat," Zachary said. "That was a promise. Apologize." "I am sorry," Marcus said quickly, his earlier arrogance deflated. "I am sorry, Helena." Zachary released him with a look of disgust. Marcus stumbled back, straightening his coat with shaking hands. "I will have my lawyers mail you the annulment papers," he said to Helena, trying to salvage some dignity. "You will sign them." "I will do no such thing," Helena said, finding her voice. "If you want an annulment or divorce, you can work for it through proper channels. But I will not lie and say our marriage was never consummated just to save your reputation." Marcus opened his mouth to argue, but one look at Zachary's face made him think better of it. He turned on his heel and stalked out of the café, slamming the door behind him. The café erupted in conversation, everyone talking at once about what they had just witnessed. Helena stood there, shaking, unable to believe what had just happened. Zachary came to her side, his expression softening. "You all right?" he asked for what felt like the 100th time since they had met. "I do not know," Helena said honestly. "I think so." "You did good," Zachary said. "Standing up to him like that took courage." Helena looked up at him, at this man who had defended her honor without hesitation, who looked at her like she mattered. "Thank you for what you did." "Any time," Zachary said. "I meant what I said before. You are wanted here more than you will ever know, darling." The endearment, spoken so naturally, so warmly, made Helena's heart stutter. She wanted to say something, to tell him how much his support meant to her, but her throat was tight with emotion. Beatrice shooed them both away from the gawking customers. Enough excitement for one day. "Helena, take the rest of the afternoon off. You have earned it. Zachary, take her somewhere nice. She needs to get out of this place for a while." Before Helena could protest, Zachary was guiding her out of the café and toward where his horse was tied. "You ever ridden before?" he asked. "Yes, when I was younger," Helena said. "Good. Come on, I want to show you something." He helped her up onto his horse, then swung up behind her, one arm coming around her waist to hold her steady. Helena felt her breath catch at the closeness, at the solid warmth of his chest against her back. Zachary urged the horse into an easy walk, heading north out of town. They rode in comfortable silence for a while, leaving the buildings of Del Rio behind and entering the open countryside. The winter had given way to early spring, and the land was starting to green up. Wildflowers dotted the prairie, and the air smelled of sage and new grass. After about 30 minutes, Zachary guided the horse up a low hill and stopped at the top. Spread out before them was a valley with a winding creek running through it, and beyond that, a cluster of buildings that Helena assumed was his ranch. "That is home," Zachary said quietly. "The Easton Ranch. My father started it 20 years ago with nothing but determination and a good horse. When he died 5 years back, he left it to me and my sister. She is married now, living in San Antonio with her husband, so I run the place." "It is beautiful," Helena said, and she meant it. There was something peaceful about the view, something that made her chest ache with longing for a place to belong. "I want to show you something else," Zachary said. He guided the horse down the hill and across the creek, not toward the main ranch buildings but toward a smaller structure on the eastern edge of the property. As they got closer, Helena could see it was a house, small but well built, with a porch facing the creek. Zachary dismounted and helped Helena down. "This is the foreman's house," he explained. "It has been empty since my last foreman retired and moved to town. I have been meaning to hire someone new, but I have not found the right person yet." He led her up onto the porch and opened the door. The house was dusty from disuse but charming, with a main room that served as kitchen and living area, a separate bedroom, and large windows that let in plenty of light. "Why did you bring me here?" Helena asked, running her hand along the dusty mantel of the fireplace. Zachary took off his hat, turning it in his hands. "Because I want you to consider something. I need help at the ranch. Someone to manage the household, keep the books, maybe help with some of the administrative work. The job comes with this house and a fair salary." Helena turned to look at him, her heart pounding. "You are offering me a job?" "Yes," Zachary said, "but I want to be honest with you about something. I have feelings for you, Helena. I think I have since the first time I saw you sitting outside that boarding house, looking lost and heartbroken but still holding your head high. I want to help you because it is the right thing to do, but I also want to get to know you better. I want to court you properly if you will let me." Helena felt tears prick at her eyes. "Zachary, I am still married, technically, and my life is such a mess. You could have any woman you wanted. Why would you want someone like me?" Zachary closed the distance between them, reaching out to gently cup her face in his calloused hands. "Because you are brave and strong and kind. Because you do not give up even when life knocks you down. Because when I look at you, I see everything I have been waiting for without knowing I was waiting." "I am scared," Helena whispered. "What if I cannot be what you need? What if I fail again?" "You did not fail," Zachary said fiercely. "Your husband failed you, and I am not your husband. I am not going to put impossible expectations on you and then throw you away when you do not meet them. I am going to stand by you, support you, cherish you the way you deserve." A sob escaped Helena's throat, and then Zachary was pulling her into his arms, holding her while she cried. She cried for everything she had lost, for all the hurt and humiliation she had endured, but also for the hope that was blooming in her chest, fragile but real. When the tears finally subsided, Helena pulled back slightly, looking up at Zachary. "I want to say yes," she said. "To the job, to letting you court me, to all of it, but I need time. I need to sort out my situation with Marcus first. I need to make sure I am doing this for the right reasons, not just because I am scared and alone." Zachary nodded, though she could see the disappointment in his eyes. "I understand. Take all the time you need. The offer stands whenever you are ready." They rode back to town slowly, and Zachary walked her to the café. Before he left, he took her hand. "Helena, I meant what I said earlier. You are wanted here, by this town, by Beatrice, by me. Never forget that." Helena squeezed his hand. "I will not forget." Over the next few weeks, Helena did a lot of thinking. Marcus's lawyers did send annulment papers, and she consulted with the town's lawyer, a kind older man named Mr. Garrett, who advised her on the best course of action. In the end, Helena decided that she wanted nothing from Marcus, no alimony, no fight. She just wanted to be free. She agreed to the annulment on the condition that Marcus paid all legal fees, and that there would be no public statements about the reasons for the annulment beyond irreconcilable differences. Marcus, apparently eager to be done with the whole mess and get back to Boston to find a new wife, agreed immediately. While the legal process moved forward, Helena continued working at the café. Zachary came in every day without fail, and they talked, really talked, about everything from their childhoods to their dreams for the future. Helena found herself falling for him, slowly and steadily, in a way that felt completely different from her rushed courtship with Marcus. This felt real. This felt right. One evening in late April, Mr. Garrett came to the café with news. "The annulment is final," he said, handing Helena the official papers. "You are a free woman, Miss Evans." Helena stared at the papers, feeling a weight lift from her shoulders. She was free. Free to make her own choices, to build her own life, to love who she wanted to love. The next morning, when Zachary came in for breakfast, Helena waited until he had finished his coffee before she spoke. "The annulment is final." Zachary's eyes widened. "You are free." "I am free," Helena confirmed. "And if the offer still stands, I would like to accept the job at your ranch, and I would very much like for you to court me properly." The smile that broke across Zachary's face was like the sun coming out from behind clouds. "The offer absolutely still stands." "Can you start today?" Helena laughed. "I need to give Beatrice notice. She has been good to me. I cannot just leave her without help." "You are a good woman, Helena Evans," Zachary said. "How about in 2 weeks?" 2 weeks, Helena agreed. Beatrice was sorry to lose Helena but happy for her. "That Zachary Easton is a good man," she said. "You could do a lot worse, and between you and me, I think you could do a lot better than just working for him, if you catch my meaning." Helena blushed but could not hide her smile. "We will see." Those 2 weeks passed in a blur of excitement and nerves. Helena purchased a few new dresses with the money she had saved from working at the café, practical work clothes more suitable for ranch life. She said goodbye to the few friends she had made in Del Rio, though it was not really goodbye since the ranch was so close to town. On a warm Sunday morning in May, Zachary came to collect her with a wagon to carry her few belongings. The drive to the ranch felt like entering a new chapter of her life, and Helena's heart was full of anticipation. Zachary introduced her to the ranch hands, a diverse group of men ranging from young boys learning the trade to weathered veterans who had been working cattle for decades. They were respectful but curious about the new woman who would be managing the household. Helena got the sense that they were reserving judgment, waiting to see if she could handle ranch life. The foreman's house had been thoroughly cleaned, and Helena was touched to find that someone had stocked the kitchen with basic supplies and left fresh wildflowers on the table. "The men wanted you to feel welcome," Zachary said, looking pleased. "They are good people." "It is perfect," Helena said, looking around at the little house that was now hers. "Thank you, Zachary, for everything." "You do not have to thank me," he said. "You earned this with your own hard work and determination. I am just glad I could offer you the opportunity." Helena settled into ranch life more easily than she had expected. Zachary had not exaggerated when he said he needed help with administrative work. The ranch records were in chaos, receipts and invoices mixed together with no clear system. Helena spent her first week just organizing the paperwork and setting up a proper bookkeeping system. She also took over the household management of the main ranch house, which Zachary had been rattling around in alone. She coordinated with the cook, a cheerful Mexican woman named Rosa who had been with the Easton family for years. Between the two of them, They made sure the house ran smoothly and that the ranch hands were well fed. In the evenings, Zachary would often come by Helena's little house, and they would sit on the porch, watching the sun set over the prairie while they talked. Their courtship was slow and sweet, built on genuine friendship and respect. Zachary never pushed for more than Helena was ready to give, content to simply be in her presence. As spring turned to summer, Helena bloomed under the warmth of Zachary's affection and the satisfaction of honest work. She felt herself healing from the wounds Marcus had inflicted, felt herself becoming stronger and more confident. One evening in late June, they were sitting on the porch as usual when Zachary took Helena's hand. "Can I ask you something?" "Of course," Helena said. "Are you happy here?" Zachary asked. "Really happy, not just making the best of a difficult situation." Helena squeezed his hand. "I am happier than I have been in a very long time, maybe happier than I have ever been. This place, the work, it all feels right in a way nothing in my life has felt right before." Zachary brought her hand to his lips, pressing a gentle kiss to her knuckles. "I am falling in love with you, Helena. I think I have been since the day we met, but now I am sure of it. You are everything I have ever wanted and things I did not know I needed." Helena felt tears of joy prick at her eyes. "I am falling in love with you too. I am scared because the last time I trusted someone with my heart, he broke it so completely. But when I am with you, the fear gets smaller and the love gets bigger." "I will never hurt you the way he did," Zachary said, his voice thick with emotion. "I swear to you, Helena, I will spend every day proving that you can trust me, that you can count on me." "I know," Helena said. "I do trust you. That is the miraculous part." Zachary stood up and pulled Helena to her feet, wrapping his arms around her waist. "Can I kiss you?" he asked softly. In answer, Helena reached up and pulled his head down to hers. The kiss was gentle at first, tentative, but it quickly deepened as weeks of restrained longing finally found release. When they finally pulled apart, both were breathing hard, and Helena felt dizzy with joy. "I want to marry you," Zachary said, resting his forehead against hers. "I know it is too soon, and you have been through hell with your last marriage, but I want you to know that my intentions are honorable. I want to build a life with you, a real partnership where we support each other and grow old together." "Ask me again in a few months," Helena said, smiling through her tears. "When I have had time to be free and discover who I am outside of anyone's expectations. And then I will say yes, because I want all of those things with you too." Zachary kissed her again, slower this time, savoring. "I can wait. You are worth waiting for." The summer passed in a golden haze of hard work and growing love. Helena threw herself into ranch life, learning everything she could about the operation. She had a good head for business, and her suggestions for improving efficiency and cutting costs impressed even the most skeptical of the ranch hands. Slowly, she earned their respect not as Zachary's sweetheart, but as a capable manager in her own right. In August, there was a crisis when a section of fence went down during a storm, and half the cattle wandered onto a neighboring property. Helena helped coordinate the recovery effort, working alongside the men to round up the strays. She proved she could ride hard and work long hours without complaint, and by the end of that ordeal, she had won over even the most doubtful members of the crew. "You are one of us now," Connor, the red-haired cowboy, told her with a grin. "Ain't no one going to question your place on this ranch." Helena felt a surge of pride and belonging. She had found her place, had proven herself capable and strong. It was a far cry from the broken woman who had been thrown out of a stagecoach 4 months earlier. In September, Zachary took Helena to San Antonio to meet his sister, Sarah, and her husband, David. Sarah was a warm, lovely woman who reminded Helena of Zachary in many ways. She welcomed Helena with open arms, clearly thrilled that her brother had found someone who made him so happy. "I have never seen him like this," Sarah confided to Helena while the men were occupied with business matters. "Zachary has always been so focused on the ranch, so serious about his responsibilities. But with you, he laughs more. He seems lighter, happier." "He makes me happy too," Helena said. "Happier than I knew I could be." Sarah squeezed her hand. "I am so glad he found you, and I am sorry for what you went through before, but maybe it was all meant to happen so you could end up where you belong." Helena had thought the same thing herself. As painful as her experience with Marcus had been, it had led her to Del Rio, to Zachary, to the life she was building. Maybe there was a purpose to suffering after all. On the ride back to the ranch, Zachary was quiet, seemingly lost in thought. Finally, as the sun was setting and they were nearing home, he pulled the wagon to a stop and turned to Helena. "I know I said I would wait to ask again," he said, "but I cannot wait any longer. Helena Evans, will you marry me? Will you be my wife, my partner, my companion for the rest of my life?" Helena felt her heart swell with so much love she thought it might burst. "Yes," she said simply. "Yes, I will marry you." Zachary pulled a small velvet box from his pocket and opened it to reveal a simple gold band with a small diamond. "It was my mother's," he said. "My father gave it to her when they married, and she gave it to me before she died, told me to give it to the woman who captured my heart." Helena held out her hand, trembling with emotion, and Zachary slipped the ring onto her finger. It fit perfectly, as if it had been made for her. They decided to have a simple wedding in October, after the fall roundup was complete. The ceremony took place at the small church in Del Rio, with most of the town in attendance. Helena wore a simple white dress that she and Sarah had picked out during their trip to San Antonio, and Zachary wore a new suit that made him look dashingly handsome. Beatrice cried through the whole ceremony. Mrs. Patterson looked pleased, as if she had known all along how things would turn out. The ranch hands attended in force, scrubbed clean and dressed in their Sunday best, grinning like fools. When the minister pronounced them husband and wife, Zachary kissed Helena with a tenderness that made her heart sing. This was nothing like her first wedding, which had been a hasty affair with few guests and even less joy. This was a celebration of love, witnessed and blessed by a community that had come to care for both of them. The reception was held at the ranch, with tables set up in the yard and enough food to feed an army. There was music and dancing, laughter and joy. Helena danced with Zachary under the stars, feeling more loved and cherished than she had ever imagined possible. "Happy?" Zachary asked, pulling her close as they swayed to the music. "Deliriously," Helena said, smiling up at him. "I love you so much." "I love you too, darling," Zachary said, and kissed her again to the applause and cheers of their guests. Helena moved into the main ranch house with Zachary, and they settled into married life with an ease that felt natural and right. They were partners in every sense of the word, working side by side to run the ranch and build their future together. Winter came, and with it, the slower pace that allowed them time to simply be together. They spent long evenings by the fire, reading or talking or just sitting in comfortable silence. Zachary taught Helena to play chess, and she discovered she had a talent for it, beating him regularly much to his amused frustration. In February, Helena realized she had missed her monthly courses. At first, she did not want to get her hopes up, remembering Marcus's cruel accusations and her own fears that perhaps there was something wrong with her. But as the weeks passed and her body began to change, she could no longer deny the truth. She was pregnant. Helena told Zachary one evening after dinner, nervous about how he would react. They had not discussed children much, and she worried that he might feel it was too soon or that he was not ready. But the moment she said the words, Zachary's face lit up with such pure joy that all her fears evaporated. He picked her up and spun her around, laughing and crying at the same time. "We are going to have a baby," he said, as if he could not quite believe it. "We are going to have a baby," Helena confirmed, her own tears flowing freely now. Zachary set her down gently, his hands immediately going to her still flat stomach. "This is the best news, the very best news. You have made me the happiest man alive, Helena. You are not worried it is too soon?" Helena asked. "Too soon?" Zachary shook his head. "Darling, I would have a dozen babies with you if you were willing. I love you and I will love our children. There is no such thing as too soon when it is right." Helena felt a weight she had not even known she was carrying lift from her shoulders. Marcus had made her feel like her worth was tied to her ability to immediately conceive. But Zachary loved her for who she was, and a baby was just a wonderful bonus, a gift to be celebrated rather than an expectation to be met. The pregnancy progressed smoothly. Helena continued to work as long as she was able, though Zachary and the ranch hands all conspired to make sure she did not overdo it. Rosa fussed over her like a mother hen, making sure she ate well and rested often. Sarah came to visit in April, bringing with her a trunk full of baby clothes and supplies. The two women spent hours preparing the nursery in one of the upstairs rooms, painting and decorating and dreaming about the future. "Have you thought about names?" Sarah asked as they hung curtains. "If it is a boy, Zachary wants to name him William after his father," Helena said. "If it is a girl, I was thinking Emma after my mother." "Both beautiful names," Sarah said. "This baby is going to be so loved." In late May, as the wildflowers were blooming across the prairie, Helena went into labor. It was long and difficult, but Zachary never left her side, holding her hand and encouraging her through every contraction. When the baby finally arrived just after dawn, filling the house with strong, healthy cries, Helena felt a love so powerful it took her breath away. "It is a boy," the midwife announced, placing the squirming, red-faced infant on Helena's chest. Helena looked down at her son, at his tiny perfect fingers and his dark hair, and felt tears stream down her face. "Hello, William," she whispered. "We are so happy to meet you." Zachary was crying too, his hand gentle as he touched his son's head. "He is perfect. You are perfect. I love you so much." The first few months of parenthood were exhausting but wonderful. William was a good baby, healthy and growing fast. Zachary was a devoted father, getting up with Helena for night feedings and changing diapers without complaint. The ranch hands all doted on the baby, taking turns holding him and making ridiculous faces to get him to smile. As autumn arrived and William grew stronger, Helena reflected on the incredible journey that had brought her to this moment. A little over a year ago, she had been discarded, unwanted, heartbroken. Now she was loved, cherished, and surrounded by family and friends. She had found her place, her purpose, her happiness. One evening in October, on their first wedding anniversary, Zachary and Helena sat on the porch of their home, watching the sun set while William slept peacefully in his cradle beside them. "You ever think about where you would be if things had gone differently?" Zachary asked, his arm around Helena's shoulders. "Sometimes," Helena admitted. "If Marcus had not thrown me out, I would still be trapped in a loveless marriage, miserable and feeling worthless. In a strange way, his cruelty set me free to find real love. I am grateful every day that you ended up in Del Rio," Zachary said. "That you walked into that café and gave me a chance to know you. You have changed my life in ways I cannot even express." Helena leaned into him, feeling safe and content. You gave me everything I needed when I needed it most. You saw value in me when I felt valueless. You wanted me when I felt unwanted. You loved me when I felt unlovable. You are wanted here more than you will ever know, darling, Zachary said, echoing the words he had spoken to her so many months ago. You and William, you are my whole world. As the years passed, the Easton Ranch prospered. Helena's business acumen combined with Zachary's ranching skills made them a formidable team. They expanded the operation, adding more land and cattle, becoming one of the most successful ranches in the region. William grew into a bright, energetic boy with his father's blue-gray eyes and his mother's dark hair. When he was 3, Helena gave birth to a daughter they named Emma, fulfilling Helena's wish to honor her mother. Emma was followed 2 years later by another son, James, named for Zachary's grandfather. The house was always full of noise and laughter, of children playing and the sounds of family life. Helena sometimes thought back to her dark days in Del Rio, to the crushing loneliness and fear she had felt, and marveled at how completely her life had transformed. On a warm spring day in 1886, 8 years after Helena had been thrown from that stagecoach, she and Zachary stood together watching their 3 children play in the yard. William was 10 now, teaching Emma and James how to rope the practice steer. Their laughter carried on the breeze, and Helena felt her heart overflow with gratitude. "What are you thinking?" Zachary asked, pulling her close. "I am thinking that I am the luckiest woman alive," Helena said. "I have a husband I adore, beautiful children, a home I love, and work that fulfills me. What more could I possibly want? How about another baby?" Zachary asked with a grin. "I seem to recall you saying something about wanting a large family." Helena laughed and swatted his arm playfully. "Let us get these 3 raised first, and then we will talk." But even as she said it, she was smiling. Because the truth was, she would be happy with whatever life brought, as long as she had Zachary by her side. Marcus's name was rarely mentioned anymore. The annulment had made it as if their marriage had never existed in the eyes of the law. Helena had heard through occasional gossip that he had indeed remarried, a wealthy woman from New York who had given him the heir he so desperately wanted. She felt nothing when she heard the news, no residual pain or jealousy. That chapter of her life was closed, and she was grateful for the lessons it had taught her, even if the learning had been painful. Connor, the red-haired ranch hand who had been one of the first to welcome Helena, married a local girl named Margaret, and they built a house on the far side of the property. Miguel took over as foreman when the position officially became available, and he managed the ranch hands with firm but fair authority. Rosa continued to reign supreme in the kitchen, now helped by Margaret, and between them, they made sure everyone was well fed. The Easton Ranch became known not just for its success, but for the way it was run, with respect and dignity for all who worked there. Zachary and Helena made sure to pay fair wages, provide good working conditions, and treat everyone like family. It made them popular employers, and they never had trouble finding good people when they needed to expand. Sarah and David visited regularly, and their own children grew up alongside William, Emma, and James, forming bonds that would last a lifetime. The 2 families were close, supporting each other through good times and bad. In the summer of 1888, Del Rio was hit by a devastating drought. Creeks dried up, and grass withered in the relentless heat. Many smaller ranchers were forced to sell off their stock at a loss, unable to keep their cattle alive. The Easton Ranch, with its better water access and careful management, weathered the drought better than most, but it was still a difficult time. Helena worked tirelessly alongside Zachary, coordinating water distribution, managing resources, and finding creative solutions to problems. At night, exhausted, they would fall into bed and hold each other, drawing strength from their partnership. "We will get through this," Zachary would say. "We always do." And they did. When the rains finally came in the fall, bringing relief and renewal, the Easton Ranch was still standing strong. They had even been able to help some of their neighbors, extending credit and sharing resources, which earned them respect and gratitude throughout the community. On Christmas Eve that year, with the drought behind them and the ranch secure, Helena and Zachary gathered their children around the fireplace in the main room. William was 12 now, tall and lanky, already showing signs of the man he would become. Emma was 9, sweet and thoughtful with a love for books and learning. James, at 7, was the wild one, always covered in dirt and full of mischief. "Tell us the story, Mama," Emma said, snuggling close to Helena on the sofa. "The story of how you and Papa met." Helena and Zachary exchanged a glance. The children knew parts of the story, but not all of it. They knew their mother had come to Del Rio alone and that their father had courted her properly. But they did not know about Marcus, about the rejection and abandonment, about how close their mother had come to giving up hope. "Well," Helena began, choosing her words carefully, "I came to Del Rio during a very difficult time in my life. I felt lost and alone, like I did not belong anywhere." "But then Papa found you," William said, as if he had heard this part before. "Not quite," Zachary said, ruffling his son's hair. "Your mother saved herself first. She found work, made a place for herself, proved how strong and capable she was. I just happened to notice and fell head over heels in love with the most amazing woman I had ever met." "Papa said Mama was wanted here more than she would ever know," Emma said dreamily. "She was at the age where romance was becoming interesting." "That is true," Zachary confirmed, smiling at Helena. "And I will spend the rest of my life making sure she knows it." Helena felt tears prick at her eyes, as moved by Zachary's love now as she had been that first day in the café when he had stood up for her. "The important part of the story," she said to her children, "is that even when things seem impossible, even when you feel unwanted or alone, you have the strength inside you to build a new life. And sometimes, when you least expect it, you find exactly where you are meant to be." James, who was too young to fully understand the deeper meaning, just wanted to know if there would be presents in the morning. Emma pondered her mother's words with a thoughtful expression. But William, intuitive like his father, seemed to understand that there was more to the story than what was being said. He caught his mother's eye and smiled, and Helena knew that someday, when he was older, she would tell him the full truth. But for now, this version was enough. The years continued to pass in a blur of seasons and celebrations, challenges and triumphs. William grew into a fine young man, passionate about the ranch and eager to learn everything his father could teach him. Emma developed a talent for music and art, bringing beauty and culture to their corner of Texas. James remained the adventurous one, always testing boundaries but with a good heart underneath the mischief. Helena and Zachary grew older together, their love deepening with each passing year. The initial passion had matured into something even more precious. A profound partnership, an unshakable bond, a love that had been tested and proven true time and time again. On Helena's 40th birthday in 1896, Zachary organized a surprise party that brought together everyone they had come to care about over the years. Beatrice was there, retired now but still sharp as ever. Mr. Garrett, the lawyer who had helped Helena secure her annulment, attended with his wife. The ranch hands, past and present, came to celebrate the woman who had become the heart of the Easton Ranch. As Helena stood in the yard of her home, Surrounded by friends and family, she felt overwhelmed with gratitude. She thought about the woman she had been 18 years earlier, broken and discarded, and the woman she had become, confident, loved, fulfilled. Zachary came up behind her, wrapping his arms around her waist. "Happy birthday, darling." Helena leaned back against him, solid and dependable as always. "Thank you for this, for everything, for giving me a life I never dreamed I could have." "You gave me that life too," Zachary said, turning her to face him. "We built it together, you and me. That is what makes it so special." Looking into his blue-gray eyes, Helena saw their whole history reflected back at her. The tentative beginnings, the slow building of trust, the flowering of love, the years of partnership and parenting and facing life's challenges side by side. She saw the future too, the years still to come, growing old together on this land they both loved. "I love you," she said simply, because sometimes the simplest words held the deepest truth. "I love you too," Zachary replied and kissed her there in front of everyone, a public declaration of a love that had never wavered. The party continued into the evening, with music and dancing and laughter echoing across the prairie. Children ran wild, adults caught up on gossip and news, and the Easton Ranch glowed with warmth and welcome. Later that night, after the guests had departed and the children were in bed, Helena and Zachary sat together on their porch, a place that had witnessed countless conversations and quiet moments over the years. The stars above were brilliant, undimmed by any artificial light, and a cool breeze brought the scent of sage from the prairie. "You ever regret it?" Helena asked suddenly. "Taking in a strange woman, offering her a job, courting someone who came with so much baggage?" Zachary was quiet for a moment, considering the question seriously. "Not for a single second. You were never baggage, Helena. You were a gift, a blessing I did not know enough to pray for. You made me better. You made this ranch better. You made everything better." "You saved me," Helena said softly. "No," Zachary disagreed gently. "I helped you maybe at a moment when you needed help, but you saved yourself. You made the choice to keep going, to build a new life, to trust again despite being hurt. That was all you, darling. I just got lucky enough to be there when you were ready to love again." Helena knew he was right. She had done the hard work of healing, of rebuilding her sense of self-worth, of learning to trust her own judgment again. Zachary had provided support and love, but the strength had come from within her. "We make a good team," she said. "The best team," Zachary agreed, pulling her close. As the years marched toward the turn of the century, the Easton Ranch continued to thrive. William married a lovely young woman named Catherine in 1899, and they built a house on the property near his parents. When their first child was born in 1900, a healthy baby boy they named Zachary after his grandfather, Helena found herself in the unexpected role of grandmother. Holding baby Zachary, feeling the weight of him in her arms, Helena was transported back to the moment she had first held William. The circle of life continuing, generations connecting, love multiplying and expanding to encompass new souls. Emma decided she wanted to attend a music conservatory in Houston, a decision that both terrified and thrilled Helena. Letting her daughter go was difficult, but Emma was 21, an adult capable of making her own decisions. And Helena remembered all too well what it was like to have your choices taken away. She would not do that to her daughter. James, now 19, was being courted by several ranching families who saw potential in the energetic young man. But James was not ready to settle down yet. He wanted to see more of the world, maybe join a cattle drive north to see what lay beyond Texas. Zachary, remembering his own youth, gave James his blessing, though Helena worried constantly until her youngest returned home safe and sound 6 months later with stories that would be told for years to come. In the spring of 1902, on a beautiful April morning, Helena woke to find Zachary standing by the bedroom window, looking out over the ranch with an expression of deep satisfaction. "What are you thinking about?" she asked, sitting up in bed. Zachary turned to her with a smile. "I am thinking that we did it. We built something real and lasting. Our children are happy and settled. The ranch is secure. We have more than 20 years of marriage behind us, and I love you more now than I did on our wedding day." Helena felt emotion well up in her chest. 24 years since she had been thrown from that stagecoach. 23 years since Zachary had first told her she was wanted. 21 years of marriage, 3 children, 1 grandchild, countless memories. "Come here," she said, holding out her hand. Zachary crossed to the bed and took her hand, sitting beside her. Helena reached up to touch his face, noting the lines that time had etched there, the gray threading through his dark hair. He was 51 now, still strong and capable, but bearing the marks of a life well lived. "You are the best thing that ever happened to me," Helena said. "You took a broken woman and loved her back together. You gave me a family, a home, a purpose. You showed me what real love looks like." "It was easy," Zachary said, bringing her hand to his lips. "Loving you has been the easiest thing I have ever done." They sat there together as the sun rose higher, bathing the room in golden light. Outside, they could hear the sounds of the ranch waking up. Cattle lowing, horses nickering, men calling to each other as they started the day's work. The sounds of home, of life, of legacy. Helena thought about the girl she had been, raised in Boston with dreams of a secure marriage and comfortable life. She thought about the terrified young woman abandoned in Del Rio, certain her life was over. And she looked at the woman she had become, strong, loved, fulfilled beyond measure. The journey had been difficult, marked by pain and rejection and fear. But it had led her to exactly where she was meant to be. Sometimes the worst moments of our lives are actually doorways to the best chapters if we are brave enough to walk through them. "Thank you," Helena said to Zachary, though the words felt inadequate for everything she wanted to express. "For what?" Zachary asked. "For seeing me. For wanting me. For loving me." Zachary pulled her into his arms, holding her close. "You are wanted here more than you will ever know, darling. Today, tomorrow, and every day for the rest of our lives." And in that moment, wrapped in her husband's arms, Helena felt the truth of those words settle into her bones. She was wanted. She was loved. She was home. The years ahead would bring more changes, more challenges, more joys and sorrows. Emma would return from Houston with a husband, a talented musician who would add his own music to the symphony of ranch life. James would eventually settle down with a neighbor's daughter, building his own legacy. William and Catherine would give Helena and Zachary more grandchildren to love and spoil. There would be hard years too, droughts and economic downturns, illnesses and losses. But through it all, Helena and Zachary would face everything together. Their love the foundation upon which everything else was built. On their 30th wedding anniversary in 1909, the whole family gathered at the ranch for a celebration that rivaled their original wedding. 3 children, 5 grandchildren, dozens of friends and neighbors all came together to honor a love story that had started with rejection and abandonment, but had grown into something beautiful and enduring. As Helena danced with Zachary under the stars, just as they had on their wedding night, she felt the weight of years and the lightness of love all at once. She was 55 years old, her dark hair now streaked with silver, her face lined with laughter and life. But in Zachary's arms, she felt as young and cherished as she had at 22 when he had first told her she was wanted. 30 years, Zachary marveled. It has gone so fast. And yet it feels like I have always known you, Helena said. Like my life before you was just a prologue to the real story. Our story, Zachary corrected. Always our story. The music continued, couples whirling across the makeshift dance floor in the yard. Children played in the growing darkness, catching fireflies and laughing. Grandchildren dozed in their mother's arms, tired from the excitement. The ranch hands, who had become like family over the years, stood around the edges, smiling at the celebration of a love they had all witnessed grow and deepen. As the party wound down and guests began to depart, Helena stood on the porch of the main house, watching the scene with a heart full of gratitude. She thought about the woman she had been, discarded and unwanted, and marveled at the transformation. She had not just survived, she had thrived. She had not just found love again, she had built a life filled with purpose and meaning. Zachary came to stand beside her, his arm automatically going around her waist. It was a gesture so familiar, so natural after 30 years of marriage, that Helena leaned into him without thought. Happy? He asked, the same question he had asked countless times over the years. Deliriously, Helena answered, the same response she always gave because it was always true. They stood there together, watching the last of the guests drive away into the night, watching their children gather their own children to take them home, watching the ranch settle into the peaceful quiet of night. The stars above were the same stars that had shone on their wedding night, on the night Helena had arrived in Del Rio broken and afraid, on countless nights in between. I would do it all again, Helena said suddenly. Even the hard parts, even Marcus and the abandonment and the fear. I would go through all of it again because it led me to you. Zachary turned to face her, his weathered hands framing her face with infinite gentleness. You never have to go through anything alone again. For the rest of our days, we walk this path together. Together, Helena echoed and kissed her husband under the Texas stars. In the years that followed, as they moved through their 60s and into their 70s, Helena and Zachary gradually stepped back from the day-to-day operations of the ranch, leaving more responsibility to William and James while still offering guidance and wisdom when needed. They had built something that would outlast them, a legacy not just of land and cattle, but of love and family and treating people with dignity and respect. Emma and her husband established a music school in Del Rio, bringing culture and arts to the rough border town. James expanded the ranch's holdings, always with his father's cautious wisdom tempering his youthful enthusiasm. William proved to be as capable a ranch manager as Zachary had been, with Catherine's support and Helena's business acumen backing him up. The grandchildren grew, and then there were great-grandchildren, tiny faces that looked up at Helena with wonder and innocence. Each new generation was a testament to the life she and Zachary had built together, proof that love could indeed conquer all obstacles and create something lasting. On a warm October evening in 1920, as the sun set over the prairie in shades of gold and crimson, Helena and Zachary sat together on their porch one last time. They were both in their 80s now, their bodies worn from a lifetime of hard work, but their spirits still strong. Their hands were clasped together as they had been countless times before, two lives so intertwined that it was impossible to tell where one ended and the other began. It has been a good life, Helena said softly, watching the sun sink toward the horizon. The best life, Zachary agreed. Because I got to live it with you. Helena squeezed his hand, feeling the familiar calluses, the strength that remained despite the passage of years. You saved me, you know, that day in the café when you stood up for me when you told me I was wanted. You gave me back my life. No, darling, Zachary said, his voice full of love and certainty. We saved each other. That is what love does. It makes us both better, both stronger, both more than we could ever be alone. As darkness fell and the stars began to emerge, Helena rested her head on Zachary's shoulder, feeling the steady rhythm of his heart beating in time with her own. Whatever tomorrow brought, whatever trials or joys still waited, they would face it together. Because that was their promise, made 42 years earlier in a small church in Del Rio and renewed every single day since. She was wanted. She was loved. She was exactly where she belonged, and that, Helena thought as sleep claimed her, was everything she had ever needed. The end.